might bring you love.
It's bringing love! Don't let it get away!
Break its legs!
With 6 broadly canonical features, dozens of unproduced screenplays, video games, spin-offs, crossovers, comic books, novelizations, and radio plays, the Alien saga has persisted regardless of the cultural climate or the actual quality of any given release. As a kid in the 90s, I watched the original quadrilogy on a continuous VHS loop, absorbing and appreciating them all without the faintest notion of review scores or fan backlash. Which is probably why I still love those first 4 movies. Alien is a ferocious masterclass in suspense. Aliens has all the quotable lines and colonial marines. We'll get to you in a moment. Alien Resurrection makes up for its many missteps with chaotic energy, wiry weirdness, and some ingenious set pieces. Prometheus is maybe the most visually impeccable movie that I cannot stand, and Alien Covenant is pathetic, insufferable garbage. So, what of Alien 3? An often maligned studio mangled mess? Sure. But conceptually, thematically, and narratively, it's everything I could ever want from a third go-around with Ellen Ripley. A nihilistic, cruel, character-driven acid bath that I just so happen to adore. At the end of Aliens, having fought tooth and nail against an endless onslaught of xenomorphs and their gargantuan queen, Ripley drifts off to sleep with her newfound nuclear family. Battle-scarred but still breathing, our heroine gets a glimpse of a fairy tale ending.
Can I dream?
Yes, honey. I think we both can.
Alien 3 opens as a waking nightmare, with pulsing alarms and snatched glances of a failing life support system. The audience is reintroduced to the harsh reality established all those years ago on LV-426. Good people will die without reason, and their deaths won't mean much of anything to those beyond the periphery of their meagre existence. We're now at the treacherous peak of this series' nihilism. Destruction as an act of creation, cycles of trauma, enlightenment through pain. Alien 3 embodies these notions whilst marrying them to the environmental storytelling and class-conscious frameworks of the films that preceded it.
There's definitely something in here with us.
In Alien, a group of blue-collar, technologically proficient workers were destroyed by a phallocentric force of nature. The boundless freedom of space reduced to a claustrophobic series of corridors and air ducts. By aliens, human hubris and brute force colonialism are pulled apart by a native populace with home court advantage. Alien 3 feels like the first time we've seen a quiet, albeit contentious kinship between hunter and prey, both having been long since written off as something primitive, a resource to be snuffed out or exploited. Like the xenomorph stalking the shadows, these prisoners are a product of their environment and genetics. Their home, a barren expanse of jagged edges and rust. Their birthright, a double Y chromosomal mutation that leaves them susceptible to their baser urges. All part of a universe in which life is expendable, so long as there are exotic and valuable commodities to be gained. So, what does this third installment do to stand out?
You've been in my life so long, I can't remember anything else.
Well, for one thing, they don't suck the primary antagonist into the vacuum of space, which happens again and again and again and again in this franchise. Also, there's no one in brownface. Good luck on seeing that. Alien 3 brings with it a truly exceptional ensemble cast. A who's who of character actors, even those relegated to background performances, manage to make their mark amidst this murkiness.
What the fuck are you doing? What? Don't hold it like that. Hold it like this. What the fuck? Fucking kill someone, you fucking moron.
Then there's Dylan and Clemens.
Nobody ever gave me nothing. So I say, fuck that thing. Let's fight it.
Dylan, a complex, ever-shifting bastion of righteous resolve and haunted repentance, and Clemens, Ripley's sorrowful counterpart, a man of quiet dignity, regret, and soulful pathos.
I think it might be better if I left. I find you unpleasant to be around.
Together, these two are possibly the most well-rounded, fully realised supporting players in the entire Alien saga. Their state of mind and circumstance, expertly manifested by the oppressive cinematography of the late great Alex Thompson and the production design of Norman Reynolds. Every inventive shot and calloused corner of Fury 161 is presented as an architectural ether somewhere between backwater limbo, penitentiary of the damned, and an industrial cathedral.
Great stuff.
From Ripley washing ashore, blackened and lice-ridden with existential rot, to what may well be the single most evocative image in the whole franchise, this is an almost impossibly assured piece of filmmaking, considering the legendarily disastrous behind-the-scenes story going on just beyond the frame. A shoot so infamously awful, it's arguably more famous than the film it ultimately produced. But you know what happens when you hand David Fincher lemons? He knuckles down and makes Lemon Alien 3. As I've already mentioned, a key strength of the Alien series is that each film is pretty much a group of working stiffs getting snuffed out on the job. Freight hauling, bug hunting, bootlegging, all chewed up by the capitalistic meat grinder as part of the cost of doing business. Alien 3 is the only entry where, rather than shaking the hornet's nest and facing the sting, these folks are just minding their own business, quietly repaying their debt to society, only for a salivating monster to fall out of the sky. Now, this raises an interesting moral quandary. Does their circumstance make them more sympathetic, or do they have it coming, given that these men are largely incarcerated for the most heinous crimes imaginable?
You don't want to know me, lady. I'm a murderer and rapist of women.
Fincher's twisting the knife while looking the audience dead in the eyes and asking whether or not we believe in redemption and if men such as these should be cast down or granted clemency.
Come on, you, get going. Oh, fuck you.
This is all heady, heavy stuff, with Ripley as a baptized and shorn Christ figure, and this flock of sinners who opt to follow a martyr into the flaming arms of absolution. Alternatively, you could read the whole film as a pro-choice parable of empowerment.
I have one inside of me.
If that thing's inside you, how'll it get there?
I don't know. When I was in hypersleep, I guess.
Having been violated and encumbered with an unwanted, life-threatening pregnancy, our protagonist must fight against a lobby of governmental and corporate men for the right to decide what happens to her own body.
They think we're crud, and they don't give a fuck about one friend of yours that's died. Not one.
Even for a franchise rightfully lauded for its ahead-of-the-curve feminism, Alien 3 broaches bodily autonomy, reproductive rights, and sexuality in a way that's still seldom seen 30 years later.
Well, I guess I must make you nervous.
Here we get the first literal moment of sexual congress in the series, and it isn't some po-faced act of consummated love. Ripley and Clemens fuck.
Physical contact.
Definitely.
Without gratuity or sentimentality, because that's just as valid and valuable an expression of intimacy as anything else.
That's so hot.
There's even a sly subversion of slasher conventions going on here, with the male being killed off post-coitus. Speaking of abrupt murder, now is as good a time as any to address the main criticism levied against this film. The pervading outrage from James Cameron, Michael Biehn, and the wider fandom that, having given Ripley a second shot at motherhood and companionship at the end of Aliens, Alien 3 somehow betrays those sentiments. Not just thematically, but in its decision to kill off Newt and Hicks in the opening moments.
Where are the others?
They didn't make it.
What?
They didn't survive.
Here's the thing. Taking these two out of the equation so unceremoniously is possibly the smartest decision this film makes.
What? What? What?
Whoa, before you write that comment, let me explain myself. Newt and Hicks have next to no depth as characters. They're emblematic of what Ripley has lost and found. Totems of motherhood and companionship. Important to a very specific narrative, but it'd be a stretch to say they're three-dimensional, fully developed figures in their own right.
They mostly come at night. Mostly.
It's also worth noting that the familial dynamic they brought to Aliens was always something of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it raised the stakes and gave Sigourney Weaver a deeper pool to pull from as an actor.
Get away from her, you bitch!
On the other, it's a cheap textbook example of gender essentialism. The idea that a damaged woman is defined and made whole by her role as a mother and a spouse.
Oh god.
Alien 3 expertly eviscerates this reductive fallacy. Not just by stripping the last remaining vestiges of Ripley's outwardly feminine signifiers and killing Newt and Hicks, but by fertilizing her with the antithesis of maternal vulnerability.
What does it look like?
Horrible.
Divorce Newt and Hicks from the specific context of Ripley's arc in Aliens, and strip away the impact their loss has in Alien 3, and you realise how shallow and perfunctory they are as standalone characters.
I got her. Ow! Damn!
For evidence of this, you need only read William Gibson's painfully bland draft of Alien 3, where they survive and take on leading roles as Ripley lays comatose for the first 2 acts.
It's shit.
Horror has always been a genre of provocation, transgression, and emotionally challenging material. So I expect different from the third entry in a franchise founded on abrupt brutality and indiscriminate loss. Rather than floating around with nothing to do and nowhere to go, death affords these characters weight and narrative purpose beyond the archetypical roles they were born into. Given how the rest of this story plays out, Newt and Hicks are afforded a rare kindness. Having fallen asleep with closure and white light serenity, they're given a painless, meaningful end. We should all be so fortunate.
When they first heard about this thing, it was crew expendable. The next time they sent in Marines, they were expendable too. What makes you think they're gonna care about a bunch of lifers who found God at the ass end of space?
Over the years, Alien 3 has come to represent what could have been. The whispers of how much better it could have been if they'd used William Gibson's original script, even though it's boring, bloated, and available as a poorly acted audiobook.
It deposited genetic material into the ship, material that is being developed by Weyland Yutani as a weapon.
Or how about Vincent Ward's story that takes place on a wooden planet, even though it's also boring and bloated, with its one great scene repurposed and used in the Lost World Jurassic Park. Now, I'm not here to say that Alien 3 we ended up with is a faultless miracle that was unfairly set upon 30 odd years ago. It's far from perfect, whichever way you cut it. Yes, that was an editing joke. The primitive CGI was bad at the time and has aged like a Justin Trudeau Halloween costume. Bishop's butchered remains look less like Lance Henriksen and more like someone melted the Johnny Cab from Total Recall. The theatrical release was a hatchet job of plot holes, while the longer assembly cut has terminal pacing problems that can't be ignored. And yet, I love it all the same.
He's crazy, he's a fool, but he's not a liar.
Alien the theatrical cut is the best. Aliens is the most accessible. Alien Resurrection is the weirdest. But Alien 3 is my favourite. And it'll take more than Michael Fassbender's flute or Bishop's knife trick for that to change. A phallocentric h.r.giger sculpture for all our Patreon producers Jennifer C, Claire MD, Becchio, Scared Confusion, and Nicholas Le Revere, and a big ol' vaginal allegory for these amazing folks who support us over on Patreon. So how would you rank the Alien series from best to worst? And you can include the Alien vs Predator films if you're feeling nasty. And what are your overall thoughts on Alien 3? Let us know down in the comments, and make sure you like, subscribe, and share this channel with a friend. It helps us out more than you could possibly know. If you're in a position to do so, why not head over to our Patreon at the link in the description below, where you can sign up to the In Frame Out Film Club and get your name in the end credits. As always, thank you for watching. Until next time, this is In Frame Out.